What if ancient Greece was never the perfect birthplace of civilization we were told about? Behind the marble temples and heroic legends was a divided world of borrowed ideas, hidden wealth, fierce wars, and a democracy that left most people silent. We think we know ancient Greece. We picture white marble temples under a golden sun. We remember the Parthenon, the 300 Spartans, the wisdom of Athens, the poems of Homer, and the first bright flame of democracy. In the mind of the world, Greece often appears like a perfect beginning, heroic, clean, almost sacred. But what if that image is only the polished surface? What if ancient Greece was never one united country at all? What if Athens was not the capital of a single Greek nation? What if the Parthenon also stood like a stone vault for power and money? And what if the famous 300 Spartans were only one part of a much larger story? Welcome to English Mindwave, where history becomes a story, and English becomes a journey through the hidden corners of the human past. As if this kind of cinematic history helps you learn English naturally, subscribe to support the channel so more stories like this can continue. Now, let the familiar picture break apart. The real ancient Greece was not a peaceful land of perfect wisdom. It was a world of rival city-states, sea routes, borrowed ideas, hungry colonies, fragile alliances, and wars that could change everything in a single generation. It was beautiful, yes, but beauty here was never simple. Behind the marble were taxes. Behind the temples were treasuries. Behind democracy were people who were not allowed to speak. Before Greece became a symbol of civilization, it was shaped by disaster. Before Athens became famous, older worlds had already risen and fallen. Before philosophers asked great questions, islands burned, palaces collapsed, writing disappeared, and memory survived only through stories. And so the real question is not why ancient Greece became great. The real question is how a broken world became unforgettable. To understand that, the story has to move backward. Before Athens, before Sparta, before the Greece that later generations would turn into legend. Long before classical Greece found its voice, Egypt's pyramids were already old. Babylon had already risen with palaces, temples, and written records. The world was not waiting for Greece to begin civilization. Older powers were already building, trading, writing, and ruling. And out in the Aegean Sea, on the island of Crete, there was another mystery. The people of Crete built great palaces, some rising several stories high. Their walls were filled with color, movement, animals, flowers, rituals, and scenes that still feel alive. They had ships. They had wealth. They had their own writing systems, still not fully understood. And unlike many later ancient cities, their palaces did not seem obsessed with defense. This is a powerful image, a civilization confident enough to face the sea, but perhaps not prepared for the earth beneath it. Then the island of Thera, known today as Santorini, exploded. The eruption shook the Aegean world. Ash rose into the sky. The sea turned violent. Trade, memory, and daily life were interrupted by a force no king or warrior could command. Some later imaginations would connect this disaster to Atlantis. Whether that legend is true or not, the feeling remains. Beauty can disappear without warning. Crete never fully recovered. And into the weakened world came a harder people, the Mycenaeans. They spoke an early form of Greek. They built cities behind massive walls at Mycenae, Tiryns, Thebes, and Pylos. And their world was not soft or open. It was bronze, stone, weapons, kings, accounts, and ambition. Here, the road begins to lead toward Troy, Homer, and the legends Greece would later inherit. But then even this warrior world collapsed, and for centuries, the lights of writing went dark. When writing vanished, Greece did not disappear completely. It survived in broken memories, in songs, in objects buried under dust, and in stories carried by human voices. This is why the Greek Dark Ages feel so haunting. They are not dark because nothing happened. They are dark because the people who lived through them left so few words behind. A whole world was moving, suffering, rebuilding, and remembering. But history can only hear it faintly. Out of that silence came Homer. Everyone knows the name, but almost no one truly knows the man. Was Homer one poet, blind and wandering? Was he many storytellers across generations? Was he a memory given a single name because people needed one voice to hold the past together? Yet the Iliad and the Odyssey became more than poems. They became a bridge between a lost warrior age and a new Greek world slowly waking up. The Greece inside those poems is not marble perfection. It is rougher, poorer, more personal. Honor matters. Cattle can mean wealth. Kings are powerful, but not untouchable. Heroes can be glorious and deeply flawed. These stories still feel human because they show people trying to find meaning after collapse. Then, little by little, the fog began to lift. In Ionia, Greek communities borrowed a new alphabet from their Phoenician neighbors. The Greeks did not create their world from pure isolation, and they learned from others, adapted what they found, and turned borrowed tools into something lasting. The alphabet gave memory a new body. Laws, poems, trade, names, and questions could travel farther than a single voice. From this awakening came the polis, the city-state. A polis was not just a city. It was a small political world with its own army, gods, lust, pride, and fear. Mountains divided the land. The sea opened paths. Farmland was limited, and hunger pushed people outward. So Greeks sailed across the Mediterranean, founding colonies and carrying wine, grain, pottery, coins, stories, and language. But this rising world was never equal. Sparta built itself on conquest and Helot labor. Athens moved toward democracy after social struggle. Yet women, slaves, and foreign residents were left outside the political voice. So Greece was reborn with brilliance and contradiction. And from that contradiction, Greece stepped into the moment that would test everything it believed about freedom, courage, power, and survival. To the east stood the Persian Empire, vast, wealthy, organized, and confident. Beside it, the Greek city-states seemed small and restless. They were not naturally united. Some resisted Persia. Some negotiated. Some waited. Even when danger approached, unity was not simple. At Marathon, Athens found one answer in discipline. The Greek soldiers fought shoulder beside shoulder, shield beside shield, turning the phalanx into a wall of human will. It was not only bravery. It was organization, trust, and the strength of men who knew that if one line broke, everyone might fall. Then came Thermopylae, the narrow pass where memory became legend. The story remembers 300 Spartans, and their courage deserves its place. But they were not alone. Other Greeks stood there too. The wider truth does not weaken the legend. It deepens it. Yet the final answer to Persia did not come only from land. It came from money, metal, and the sea. Athens had discovered silver, and that silver became ships. Triremes, fast and sharp, moved across the water with rows of oars and the rhythm of human effort. A naval power protected Athens, but it also taught the city a dangerous lesson. Whoever controls the sea can begin to control the future. After Persia was pushed back, Athens rose like a city chosen by history. The Delian League was created for common defense, with many cities paying tribute. At first, the treasury rested on Delos. Then it moved to Athens. That one movement says almost everything. Protection became influence. Influence became control. Control became empire. And high above the city stood the Parthenon, beautiful enough to silence the eye, but never innocent. It was a temple, yes, but it also became a symbol of stored wealth, allied money, and political power dressed in marble. Behind the columns was an economic system. Behind the Golden Age was tribute. Pericles gave Athens vision, architecture, drama, and intellectual fire. But Sparta watched. Fear grew. Rivalry hardened. In 431 BCE, war came. The Peloponnesian War did not simply rake armies. It broke trust. Plague entered Athens. Pericles died. Demagogues rose. Alcibiades dazzled the city, then helped lead it toward disaster and betrayal. And still, while Athens was collapsing, its theater spoke with immortal power. Greece was bleeding, but its voice was becoming eternal. When that eternal voice rose from a wounded city, the old Greek world was already beginning to lose the power to protect itself. After the Peloponnesian War, there was no true winner. Sparta had defeated Athens, but victory did not heal Greece. The city-states remained proud, divided, suspicious, and exhausted. Then power came from the edge. Macedonia, long viewed by many southern Greeks as rough and culturally distant, began to rise under Philip II, and he understood what the city-states could not. Division was weakness. With discipline, diplomacy, and military reform, he brought much of Greece under his control and prepared to strike east against Persia. But Philip died before that dream was complete. His son Alexander carried it farther than anyone expected. He crossed into Asia, defeated Darius, entered Egypt, pushed toward India, and spread Greek language and culture across a vast new world. Cities named Alexandria appeared like markers of a new age. Greek ideas met Egyptian, Persian, and Eastern traditions. But something had changed forever. This was no longer the old Greece of independent polis and citizen assemblies. The Hellenistic world was larger, richer, more connected, but also ruled by kings, generals, and empires. Alexander died young in Babylon, and his empire cracked almost immediately. Later, Rome conquered Greece, and politically, the Greek world fell. Yet history left one final reversal. Rome conquered Greece with armies, but Greece conquered Rome with culture. Greek poetry, philosophy, art, language, and questions survived inside the Roman world, then through Byzantium and far beyond it. That is why ancient Greece still haunts us, not because it was perfect, but because it was contradictory, wounded, brilliant, and unforgettable. Its armies faded, its cities changed, but its voice refused to die. In the end, ancient Greece does not give us a simple story. It gives us a mirror. Its greatness did not come from perfection. It came from struggle, adaptation, and the power to turn painful history into lasting ideas. And perhaps this is the deepest lesson for us today. A meaningful life is not built only from success, comfort, or perfect conditions. Truth. Like ancient Greece, people often grow through pressure, confusion, failure, and difficult questions. What matters is whether we can keep learning, keep rebuilding, and turn our experiences into something valuable. So maybe the real legacy of Greece is this: what we build with the mind and the spirit can outlive what we build with stone. What part of ancient Greece surprised you the most? Please share your thoughts in the comments so everyone can learn from each other's perspective. And if this story helped you see history differently while learning English naturally, please subscribe to English Mindwave to support the channel and give us more motivation to create meaningful stories like this.